So September 17th, we celebrate the ratification of the Constitution from 1787, when we created the first 7 articles, and then it went to the ratification debate. So it wasn't ratified, it was sent to the states at that point in time. And this month we'd like to have a discussion about that document and why it matters so much to us. So we invited a very special friend and Wood County Republican supporter, Paul Schlatter, to join us on the interview today. Paul is the president of Dowling Steel, has been in Wood County for most of your life?
72 on.
72 on, yeah, so it's a good portion of time, longer than I've been alive. And Paul is the graduate of Hillsdale University. If you saw the original link, you'll have heard him talk a little bit about that. Paul, thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your support as well. It means a lot to us here in the county party. We want to talk about the Constitution. So overall, what are just if you had one thing to say to an American who's wondering why on earth should I pay attention to this document, what would that be?
Well, this is the most important document other than the Bible that's ever been written, in my opinion, my humble opinion. But this has lasted 244 years, and for any constitution, I think that's the longest in the world. Am I correct?
It is the longest standing constitution in the world.
Okay. It's the fabric of our country and the foundation of our country. It's not a progressive document. I'm sad to say that few Americans have probably read the Constitution.
So as we think about reading the Constitution, I think one of the reasons why people don't read it is they assume that it's some big code book that has thousands and thousands and thousands of words and pages, but in reality it's only this large, right?
That's right.
Can you explain why you think they made it this small?
You know, I think they tried to make it simple in the first place, so the common man, you know, could actually understand it. And it is quite simple, actually. The wording might be a little bit difficult with their language back to ours for some people, but again, it's the foundation for this country.
Yeah, as we talk about foundation, one of the real major challenges in 2019 that we face as a republic is the lack of unity, the enmity that exists between the citizens of America. We become so polarized that it's not just about political partisan positions, it's also about things that are fundamentally dear to people. I'm wondering if you believe that this document still stands a chance to govern some of those conversations, to create a common ground.
You know, I certainly hope it does. I think that the law of physics, when the pendulum swings far to the left, an equal pendulum swings far to the right. And it's really disconcerting to see the fact that we can't go to dinner with our friends and have a civil conversation about, you know, what's going on today. And when it comes down to it, this document, this Constitution, is the foundation for all of that. And people can disagree as much as they want. This document was written that long ago, and it's still the strong document. It's still what the government is based on. It's still what we are based on. And again, it's lasted longer than any constitution, I think, in the world.
Some of the more powerful arguments against the Constitution that I've heard from many well-meaning friends is, how on earth could a document written so many years ago have relevance to my life today? And these guys had nothing at all that they could relate to for me in 2019. In fact, a number of them were even slaveholders. So why are these words relevant today, and why should we continue to advance them? Why not just change it and create something new?
You know, the brilliance of, to me anyway, the brilliance of this document is the fact that guys like Jefferson and the others studied the other constitutions of the world at that point, including Rome, and studied them in depth and saw how they failed and why they failed. And I think that brilliance came to light in here that has made it last for this long.
So there's a commentary, the greatest commentaries on the Constitution that I recently read and gone through, and that's the Federalist Papers. The Federalist Papers were written during the ratification debates in 1788 in New York in order to convince the citizens of New York that they should vote in favor of, or urge their representatives to vote in favor of the Constitution which was sent to the state. During the Federalist Papers, they make these arguments that are very similar to the ones that we're talking about today, and ironically, 200 plus years later. One of the major arguments was the nation's going to grow so large that the laws will become diluted. You'll have disunity, and you'll have all of these problems creating a national level of harmony in your effectuation of what was written therein. I wonder if, in some way, shape, or form, that argument made by the Anti-Federalists was a good argument. I ask that question because I think about how we're so polarized with the coast and then the mainland. Do you see a form of reparation, that way to repair the breaches that have been created between the coast and the mainland?
You know, I don't know if there'll be a reparation or not. I really can't say that, but I think that Unfortunately, sometimes it takes a horrific event, a depression, a war, or something to bring us back together. And it concerns me greatly because I don't know if either one of those occurs that we will be able to find common ground again. And the common ground is the Constitution. And it's that simple. We need to get back to basics, and this is the basic.
So in Wood County, Paul, being a business owner, you have the opportunity to experience the government interaction between state, local, and federal governing entities and your private sector enterprise. We know that this Constitution was created with a vision for limited government. That doesn't mean no government, and it doesn't mean anarchical, overreaching government. It means limited government. Have we fulfilled that promise, or do you think government's grown to the point where it's larger than what these guys envisioned?
Thomas Jefferson, and this is probably an off quote, Thomas Jefferson said, in my studies of other governments, I found bad government is usually a result of too much government. And Thomas Jefferson had a number of great quotes, and please look those up when you can, because they are so germane to today that we can't ignore that. Maybe one of the smartest Americans that ever lived.
So we have 7 articles, and there are 27 amendments. Of the 7 articles and the 27 amendments, is there any particular section or article that you think is the greatest?
The first article.
The first article.
Yeah, actually the first 4, but the first article is the foundation to me.
And the first article, a little bit of Constitutional 101 here. First article is the legislative branch. All legislative powers herein granted shall be vested by a Congress of the into a Congress of the United States. Article 2 is the executive branch. All executive powers shall be here invested in a President of the United States. And then Article 3 is the judicial branch. All judicial powers shall be vested in a Supreme Court of the United States, and in such inferior courts as the Congress may from time to time ordain and establish. So separation of powers and the separation of powers doctrine was critical for securing rights. Can you talk about why separation of powers was so important in this document?
Oh yeah, it is, again, fundamental, but when you talk about Congress, you've got 400 and some, Congress people and men and women, and the second article is about one president, and the third article is about the Supreme Court. And so when you separate those 3, I think coming back to what people want to hear is Congress represents us. I don't know if it does today, but Congress is supposed to represent us. And we need to get back to our basics of what they're supposed to do.
And what's interesting about the first 3 articles is the first article is the largest. It's the longest article in the Constitution. The second article is the second largest, and then the third article is the third largest. And then after that, you have the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, which are all roughly speaking about equal in size. So there was something the founders, I think, were telling us when they wrote out and delineated, enumerated the powers to each of those branches, and that is that the branch closest to the people, the legislative branch, that's the branch that needs to be the largest and the most powerful, because we have the ability to make changes to it through a House and a Senate. Can you talk a little bit about that, about why, once again, the legislative branch is important, and then are we fulfilling that role today? Is it still the most powerful branch?
It is the most powerful branch, and I think that we need to get back again to the fundamentals. They represent the people, and whether it's the Senate or the House, they represent the people. The other 2 are certainly important, but we need to get back to, as far as I'm concerned, back to what the real jobs are, and that is to represent the people and do what is best for the United States. And one of the best things you can do for the United States is read this and believe it and understand it, and we don't do enough of that.
It's interesting, Congress has an approval rating of something like 17%, but most people believe that their congressman is doing well. Now, I will speak for what I believe to be an incredible representative in Congressman Latta. Not only does he read this document, he understands it to the core. Can you talk a little bit about Congressman Latta and then other representatives that we have in all the branches playing themselves out state and locally, and why it matters to be involved in politics?
Well, this isn't an advertisement for Hillsdale College that I attended. Latta does understand it, and I would hasten to say that there are very few people in Congress who do understand it as well as he does. I would guess that there are Congress people, one way or the other, that have never read the entire Constitution and certainly don't understand it.
Which I think should be a prerequisite, right?
Wouldn't you think?
I think so. I think it's something that really matters. Well, in closing, Paul, you've made some really great points. Encouraged us today to understand this document, to read it, outline some of the reasons why it's relevant and some of the reasons why we have to continue advancing it today. As you move forward in Wood County and you hope to deposit something in the next generation, what would that be? What would you want the next generation to know about the Constitution?
No, I wish it was, as an attendee of Hillsdale College, I wish it was mandatory in our schools. That's where we're supposed to get this education, and I hasten to say again that maybe our educators are A, don't understand it, and or are afraid to teach it, and or don't understand it to the point that their education didn't ever come to the point that, hey, it's just the 10th grade and you spent 1 week on it or something. It's an extremely important document to all Americans.
For those of you that have lasted this long in the interview, thank you. It's great information. It's really important. Why don't we close with the preamble? As you know, it's such an important part of why the Constitution was written, because it defines it. It was written last, even though it comes first, and it was written by the founders who wrote it, believing that they needed to define a purpose statement. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you, Paul. Appreciate you being on.
Appreciate it.